All right, hello. My name is Adrian Skobelski. Today is January 6th, 2023, and I will be making a presentation on the role of the pancreas and liver in digestion. All right, so to begin, we're going to look at the importance of the digestive process. As we know, the role of the digestive system is for us to consume food, and then the role the digestive system is meant to convert that food into nutrients for our bodies to absorb and to use. And the GI tract, as you can see in this image, shows you a little bit how it goes. As you can tell, you have the mouth, that then the food goes into the esophagus, through the stomach, through the small and large intestine, and then out through the rectum and anus. And there's still some accessory organs that are needed for digestion, not just these major ones that we know of, such as the stomach and the intestines, but we also have these small accessory organs. Well, not necessarily small, but we do have the liver, the gallbladder, pancreas, and today we're going to focus on what exactly the liver and the pancreas do. So, a little bit of information on the pancreas. The pancreas contains three sections. We have the head at the beginning, middle section is called the body, and at the end we have the tail. And now the pancreas is in a really good location as it is connected right with the part of the small intestine called the duodenum. It is also near some major blood vessels. As you can tell by the green, we have the gallbladder, which we'll see why that is important. And so here's some little background information on what the pancreas exactly looks like. And why is the pancreas important? Well, the pancreas is an interesting organ because it does have two functions. We do have the endocrine side, which we're just going to glance over because the endocrine isn't as important to digestion as much as the exocrine. So, as we know, with the endocrine part of the pancreas, that involves some cells that we will know because of diabetes. We have, for example, the beta cells that release insulin, and there's also some alpha cells, some delta cells, and these are called the pancreatic isolates. As you can tell by the image over here, they are known as the Langerhans cells, and they secrete hormones into the blood. And then some more information about the anatomy of the pancreas. As we see, we have the pancreatic ducts, which we'll later focus on why that is important for the role of digestion. But moving on, our focus will be on the exocrine function of the pancreas. And the exocrine part relies on these specialized cells called acinar cells. These cells are important because they are the ones that secrete these digestive enzymes into the pancreatic duct, right into the duodenum for digestion. All right, moving on a little bit. So, what is the enzymatic function of the pancreas? Well, the pancreas does secrete enzymes known as zymogens, which are inactive enzymes. So they're inactive, and this image kind of shows this whole placement of these organs. So we have the stomach, and then we have the duodenum, and then we have the pancreas, and then next to the pancreas we do have the bile duct, which will become important with the gallbladder and the liver. But for now, with the pancreas, we see the structure, we see the acinar cells that are located within the pancreas. We see all these little tunnels called the pancreatic ducts. And so what happens is the pancreas releases these special enzymes called zymogens. And these zymogens, these enzymes, we have a couple here. We have the pancreatic amylase, the protease, and the lipase. And now the pancreatic amylase, for example, breaks down carbohydrates into glucose. We have the protease, which is used for breaking down proteins into amino acids. so breaking the proteins down into those smaller amino acid chains. And then we have the lipase, which if we could make the connection, lipid, lipase, we'll know that the lipase is important for the breakdown of fats. And so what happens, these enzymes travel through the duct, and then they enter the duodenum, and that is where they become activated enzymes. And the specific site of this entry of these zymogens is known as the major papilla, also known as the ampulla of Vater. And in addition to these enzymes, so once they enter the duodenum, they become activated, and that's when they assist in digestion. But the pancreas also secretes bicarbonate. And so we know the stomach is a very acidic location. And what happens is as this chyme travels from the stomach into the duodenum, we want to neutralize that acid. We want to keep the acid as acidic, the most acidic area, but then we want to neutralize this chyme as it goes through the small intestines. So what happens is the pancreas releases this bicarbonate, and that is allowed to neutralize the stomach acid. All right, so we know a little bit about the role of the pancreas. Now we're going to shift our focus into the liver and what the liver does. So the liver is a very large organ. They always say that the largest organ is the skin, but the liver is known as the largest internal organ. And so this image on the right kind of shows you the basic anatomy of the liver. You have the important veins. You can see how much blood flow the liver receives. We have the inferior vena cava. We have the aorta, so just very major sources of blood. And then we'll see we have the gallbladder just right below connecting to the liver. And so the anatomy becomes very important for digestion. And so the liver is made out of two lobes. We have the right lobe, which facing the screen it's to the left, but it is known anatomically as the right lobe. And then on the left side, we have the major left lobe. So very simple anatomy here. There's thousands of lobules that connect ducts. As you can tell, all around there's major ducts. We have the cystic duct, hepatic ducts. You have the common bile duct. There's just a bunch going on. And as we heard from before, the pancreas is known for the acinar cells and the pancreatic islet cells. And the liver is known for these specialized cells known as the hepatocytes. So just a little brief glance over, because again, not much related to digestion, but just wanted to give a little focus on why the liver is such an important organ. I mean, it's not just important for digestion, but as we could tell, we see that the liver is important for nutrient metabolism, for carbs, proteins, lipids. We have it important for protein synthesis, albumin, coagulation factors, complement factors, and then we also see that it's important for storage for minerals and vitamins such as iron, copper, vitamins A, D, B12. And then finally, we do see that it is important for the excretion of bile salts, bilirubin, etc. All right. So, what makes the liver so important in the function of digestion? Well, as I mentioned, the liver is made out of these hepatocytes. These hepatocytes are important because they secrete bile. And what is bile? Well, bile is made out of bile salts, which we'll talk about why it helps in fat digestion. Bile pigments, for example, bilirubin, which is from hemoglobin degradation, and cholesterol that we later on excrete and waste. And so let's kind of take a look at how the gallbladder and the liver work together. So I'm going to scroll back to this picture because I think it shows a better representation of how this all works. So we could see, as I mentioned, we have the hepatic duct right just below connecting to the liver. And as the bile secreted, uh, it could be stored in the gallbladder, so the gallbladder could store that bile. Um, but when we eat and bile is needed for, especially for fat digestion, we'll see the bile come down and go down this what's called the common bile duct. And as that bile travels into the through the bile duct, that is when it will be able to uh, be released into the main pancreatic duct. So the gallbladder and the liver work together because the liver is the hepatocytes are what secrete the bile. The gallbladder could store the bile, also release, and then they seem to come together as we could see in this picture, and the bile gets into the duodenum, and then we see the pancreatic juice can go into the duodenum, and we have this whole interesting use of mixtures of enzymes and bile during the digestion. So I'm going to just quick focus on the digestion of fat. So as we know, as the food travels through the stomach, it becomes digested. We see the pancreas release the bicarbonate to neutralize the acids. Well, let's focus on why the bile and the bile salts are important. So bile salts, which bile is made out of, are just like as we learned from cell membranes, they're amphipathic, which means that they have the polar and nonpolar sides, hydrophilic, hydrophobic, and what happens is as the digested food travels down, uh, we know that lipids are not very water soluble. And so what happens is we need these bile salts to make it easier for these enzymes that the pancreas releases, the lipases, in order to digest those larger fats droplets. Essentially, to increase the surface area of those fat cells, to make it much easier for the lipases to really get in there and digest the fat. So these bile salts kind of interact with the fat droplets, and they allow these lipases known as colipases to easily get in and break apart the fat and digest the fat much more easily. So really the solubility and this amphipathic um, biology of the bile salts becomes very important for the degradation of these large lipid particles. Without it, you know, it would become very difficult to digest these lipid particles. And one really interesting fact is you don't just excrete these bile salts. They're actually recycled in the body. So the colon, which after the food travels down this GI tract, the colon is able to send the bile salts back to the liver. Liver is able to recycle and reuse these bile salts and keep the process going. So we see a really interesting interaction between the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, the small intestine with the duodenum, and even the stomach. So we see this, uh, important role in digestion from mouth to the rectum. But this really, especially the location of it, where we have the major blood flow, all these major organs, the combination of all these just makes digestion possible. It makes it possible to break down these chunks into the nutrients for our bodies to absorb. After this process, we see the nutrients go through the small intestine where there's the microvilli. That's where the nutrients are easily able to be digested and go into the bloodstream, and make the food that we eat used by our bodies. So that is my presentation. I hope it was very interesting, and just want to thank you.